Welcome to my tutorial for Looney Tunes for the Game Boy. This game's not too difficult. It took me around an hour and 48 minutes to beat. It's mostly a very easy game except for the final boss, which did give me a good amount of trouble. But what I did with this version is I edited out all the deaths, and I also edited in my best attempt on the final boss in practice. In my actual run, I didn't do as well. I took a few hits. And I have the actual run posted up as well, where I edited out all the unsuccessful continues, and I left in the successful continues, basically. So it does show the deaths within each continue that I left in, but it doesn't show the full, 1 hour and 48 minutes of trial and error. So check out that version if you're interested in that. But this is the more definitive version of my video, you could say, where it's edited down a little bit, and it shows a better execution on the final boss, which is the hardest part of the game. So yeah, in this game, each stage you play as a different character from the Looney Tunes series, and they all have different attacks, and they all play differently. So except for the first and final stages, because Bugs Bunny pretty much plays the same as Daffy Duck. So aside from that, all the characters are different, and they play differently. You have unlimited continues, but if you waste all your lives, you will start at the beginning of the stage you got to. And if you lose a life, you start back in the last section you got to. Like, see, this is a new section right here. Usually whenever the screen changes to a different environment, it's usually a different section most of the time. So that's pretty much how it works. And you can take 3 hits. There's some potions that you can pick up with hearts in them. Those will give you your health back. I didn't really find a benefit to collecting those gems. They just give you points as far as I can tell. You may get a 1-up occasionally from points. I'm not sure, but most of the time I didn't end up collecting them unless they were my way. Actually, Daffy Duck, I guess he handles a little bit differently because his projectile doesn't come back like a boomerang. With Bugs Bunny, his projectile actually comes back like a boomerang. So I guess he plays slightly different than Daffy Duck, now that I'm watching the video. But yeah, this is all very easy. I mean, if you take it slow, you can kind of just swim through here. If you take some damage, it's not a huge deal because there is healing items in the levels. It's actually a pretty good game, for an older Game Boy game. It plays a lot like an NES game. It's just, shorter and easier than most NES games. But the quality is pretty high. It's by Sunsoft, so they, usually put out high quality products. And for those guys, you just wait and just pelt them with your projectiles. You don't have to try to go under them or anything. You have to mash the button a little bit for those parts where it shows the bubbles, because there's a little bit of a current pushing you down, so just be aware of that. And there's some health. You can get a heart back. Now you have a boss. If you die on this boss, you start back at it. That's why you see me with full health, because I edited out a death on this boss. And then you start back with full health at this checkpoint at the boss. I beat this pretty quick, so I don't have any great tips. Aside from trying to stay away from the boss, obviously, and try to pelt it with projectiles. I didn't practice it enough to get any consistent strategies down on it. And now, once you clear this stage, if you do waste all your lives, you'll continue in the beginning of the next stage. Now, these next 3 stages I beat on my first try with no deaths, so they were very easy. So you shouldn't have too much trouble with the next 3 stages. So just keep mashing the button, basically, and you'll fly with Tweety. Eventually, he seems to run out of endurance and floats back down to the ground. I think that's just part of the way it works after you fly for a certain amount of time. I don't see any meters or anything, but that seems to be what was going on. Again, I didn't play this segment long enough to have a real clear idea of how that mechanic worked. This was my first try, and I beat it on the first try. The main thing was just to try to stay up at the top of the screen as much as I could. Occasionally, I would go back down to the ground to try to reset my flying endurance because I thought maybe that's how it works. I wasn't really sure how it worked. That may not even be the case. It might just be maybe when you get hit, you go back down to the ground and then have to fly again. That might be what was happening. I'm not really sure. But it seems like I couldn't just indefinitely float in the air. So, but if you mostly stay at the top, you should be okay. Just make sure you mash the button if you get grabbed, because that seems to be what you have to do to break out of that. But if you stay mostly at the top, you know there may be a few parts where you get grabbed, but it shouldn't happen too often. And that's it. You just get this little piece of paper here. And now you will continue from the next area if you use a continue. So now for this stage is extremely easy. This is a shooter stage. I do like how they mix up the different styles of gameplay in the game with the different characters and different styles of gameplay. Is pretty good. But yeah, this is a very, very easy shooter stage. If you've played any kind of space shooters, you'll be easily beat this in your first try. Just try to shoot everything down that comes up, obviously, and don't get hit. These are bombs, so you want to either stay away from them or detonate them. It's a short stage, and you can take 3 hits, and there's really not a lot going on screen, so very easy. There's also a very easy boss at the end of all this. Since I didn't die, I don't know if there's a checkpoint at the boss, but I mean, there really doesn't have to be because the stage is so easy. So now you're at the boss, and obviously you're going to try to avoid getting hit, but that's very easy. Again, I don't have much strategy for this because I just dodged it when I played it. It was very easy. Try to get in close and jam in a lot of bullets on the boss for faster damage, obviously, like you would on games like Mega Man and a lot of shooters. But aside from that, just don't get hit. If you are having trouble with that, you may need to practice the patterns. Always, as I recommend, use save and load states to practice any parts you're having trouble with in these games on an emulator. So yeah, now here you play as Tasmania. I was fucking around because I didn't know the controls at first, And I also was testing to see if I had rapid fire on or off, because sometimes that can mess up the controls. Having a different character that plays differently, the rapid fire may do something strange with the controls. So I was just testing it. I didn't remember if I had rapid fire set, on or off. I use it a lot. When it's effective in games, I'll use it usually. But all you have to do here, I don't think you even have to participate in this. I think once the timer runs out, you automatically win. That's what it seems like. But the idea is just, to use this tornado mode and try to grab as much meat as you can. I guess you can probably earn extra lives by getting a lot of meat. Once I realized what I was supposed to do, it was almost up. I didn't know. It's pretty much like a bonus stage. I didn't know what exactly they wanted me to do. But very easy. I don't even know if you can fail this stage because see, the timer ran out. I didn't even get all the meat, and I beat it. So I think it's just like a bonus stage. Get a lot of points. So yeah, the next stage is tricky. The next stage is one of the harder stages. Actually, well, no, it's not the stage I was thinking about, but yeah, this is one of the harder stages as well. Because see, with Speedy Gonzales, the thing that sucks about this character, every time you do his attack, he does that stupid dance where he fires off for like 2 or 3 seconds. And there's no way to interrupt or get out of the animation. So he does that dance, and he keeps doing it, so it's like if you get stuck in that animation, you can't move. So it also shoots off in strange directions, so if you're trying to aim in a specific area, It's not going to go where you want it. It always goes in a predestined area. First it goes to the right, then up, then to the left. But it's not very effective. You really have to, if you're trying to do precise shots, you'd really have to know how to time it. But you don't need to be a master at that to beat this stage. The idea is mostly to use jumping attacks or just avoid enemies. Like, see here, I just run through and avoid this whole area. So you may want to fire occasionally to clear out a little bit of the ghost or some of the enemies, but for the most part, with this character, I like to skip the enemies. See, I got stuck in the animation. I couldn't go down and get away from the spikes. Luckily, they don't one-hit kill you. But it is kind of a shitty move, where it has a long animation and it's all over the place. But yeah, the idea is basically just don't use it too much unless you need to. So now this guy, the main idea is when you hit him, he'll get knocked back. And then you want to knock him back again and have him come back to you. If you keep knocking him back, he'll keep coming back to you and you can keep hitting him again. That's pretty much what I did. It's harder to do with this character because this character is just, has such a bad shot. It's just a shitty weapon. But you'll be fighting him again in a boss rush with a much better character later on. So this is just a little basic memorization. You got to be jumping up as certain blocks move towards you, but you'll know which ones those are if you practice it a little bit. Use save and load state. Just practice and make sure you have it down if you want. It doesn't take long to get back here, so you don't have to use save and load states if you don't want to. You can just play it normally. You'll learn it eventually. It's very, very, very easy. So when this moves, just move to the right. I like going all the way to the right over this gap. I kind of jump over the gap, and then I hold right and go in this door. This gives me the PAL, which instead of a 1-up, if you go on the left side in that gap, you can get a 1-up if you want it. I like the PAL because I can just run through all this shit. So this invincibility lasts for a long time, and you cannot get hurt while you have these stars around you. So it just makes it a lot easier. So yeah, this guy, you're going to be jumping on his head. I don't recommend using your projectile attack at all unless he's in bat form. Then I found it kind of useful. I found it to be safer when he was in the bat form. But you're mainly just going to want to try to bounce on his head and just keep it up and try to avoid the bats. And now you want to go to the opposite side that the bat is on, and eventually he will swoop down, and then you want to hit him with one of your projectile attacks. That's what I found to be good. You can also try to jump on top of him, but it's very dangerous with all those little bats floating around. So I like to get on the opposite side and have him come to me, swoop down towards me, and that's it. You just have your projectiles, launching out, and you'll hit them. But that is one of the hardest stages that we've dealt with so far. It's one of the harder stages, and it's really not that hard. But next is this stage is probably even harder because of the boss fight is a little tricky. So to start off with, you're gonna be dodging these rocks that fall down. Now remember that you can jump on top of the rocks as well, and they won't hurt you. You just can't get hit by them from the side or if they land on top of you, but you can ride on them. They will disappear after a while, so be aware of that. You will hit the ground, and you may throw off your rhythm. But it's easier if you just jump on top of those rocks and ride them like that than to try to dodge everything. I have weaved out and dodged it all, but it's a lot harder. Once I realized I could jump on top of the rocks, it was way easier. So this boss is kind of difficult because he takes a lot of hits, and you do have to do a lot of dodging. So you're gonna have to learn when you can get your hits in and when not to. You don't want to be jumping down on him as he's firing up one of his attacks, obviously. So you got to get the timing down, where you have that little gap in to get the attack in. It just takes a little practice. He always does the same patterns as far as I can tell, so you can learn it. Once you get him to the corner of the screen, you can kind of rapidly bounce on him and get a lot of hits in. And that's how I ended up finishing him off. But even when I played, I didn't. It's not like I did that well. I didn't have any practice on the watermelon form where he does those little spread shots in the air because that was my first time getting to that phase, and then when I beat it. So, but it's easy enough with a little, it's just one of the harder parts, but it's really not that difficult. Now this is the final stage. This stage is very easy, except for the final boss, which is quite difficult. You don't have to get those gems. Now for this part, jump up and get the 1-up. I commit suicide here. I left this one death in the entire video because I wanted to show how I got the 1-up and then committed suicide. And the reason I did that was to get my full health back. Because when you respawn in this area, you'll have all your health back. I wanted to regain the extra hit that I lost. So for the first area, you can just run through and take damage, and then just get the 1-up and commit suicide. That's all you got to do. And then for this part, you want to jump up. When you're riding that platform, you want to jump up at certain points to stop the platform, to change the pacing of the platform, if that makes sense, so that the second ghost comes to you at the right time. Because if he comes to you towards a certain part, you have to jump up in the air to dodge the spikes. And if you don't time it right, you'll jump into the ghost. It's kind of hard to explain. Now for this is a boss rush. For this guy, you just let him kind of come to you and just bounce him around. Very easy. For this, you just stand there and mash the button. You may have to back up a little bit if he gets too close. Extremely easy. And of course, the first boss, I don't really need to say much. That was extremely easy. Now this guy, it's going to be similar. Just bounce him away from you and let him come back to you and then hit him again. See, I messed it up there, but I still managed to get out of it. Now, if you jump on enemies, it does a lot more damage than your weak projectiles. So keep that in mind. So yeah, hit him 3 times, jump his bullet. Hit him 2 more times and he's dead. Very easy. Now for this guy, you really want to wait until he throws his rock and then go up and above his rock. And then just hit him while he's trying to get to his rock. If you do that, you can just totally finish him off. If you don't do that, I was actually losing a lot of lives on that character because I was stubbornly trying to hit him while I was holding the rock. That's not the way you want to fight him. You want to let him throw his rock and then pelt him with the projectiles. Now for this part, you're just following the flow of the slopes here. And then at the very end, you're going to have to hold right to go over the spikes. So yeah, avoid these enemies here. And now you can kind of take it slow and take out these frogs however you want. I got hit there, but you don't need to get hit if you do it right. Now this guy a lot of times like to wait at the end and hit you, so just take the hit and get your health back with those potions. Now this is the final boss. Now what you're seeing here is a perfect execution of the fight where I took no damage. And of course this was edited in for my practice. This was not actually how it went down when I beat the game. And I have that version posted up as well. But the idea is to jump up on his head, and after you land, you want to jump and then throw your projectile again so that as he jumps, he gets hit by your projectile and knocked back down. And then you want to jump on his head again, and you want to try to bounce on his head as much as possible. It's really hard to pull off. It wasn't an easy boss to beat like that. You also want to jump towards him before he fires his spread shot shotgun, because his shotgun will... It'll hit you and you can't fit through the gaps. It looks like you might be able to fit in through the gaps of the bullets, but you can't. So you have to jump over the entire blast. So you want to do it when the blast is still small before it spreads out. So yeah, that's really about it. The final boss is probably going to take a lot of practice. So I recommend using save and load stage. Try to practice it and get decent at it. You don't have to practice it until it's perfect, because I was still really bad at the boss even after practicing for a little while. But it was good enough because it doesn't take long at all to get back to that boss. So if you do lose all your lives, you will just have to redo the stage, which is easy. And you will get a checkpoint on the boss, so you can try it with whatever lives you have remaining when you get to him. But yeah, that's about it. Thanks for watching.